Hello everyone, my name is Inácio and today I'll be talking about movies, specifically about movie sequels. They may seem obvious, but there are lots of types of movie sequels and they can be a lot more complicated than you might think. This video aims to answer three questions. Firstly, we will discuss very briefly what a sequel is. Secondly, we will talk about the different types of sequels, providing popular examples to further enhance your understanding. Finally, you may be wondering, why should I learn this? Well, sometime while you were reading a critic's review about a movie or just participating in a debate online, it is possible you came across words like these: prequel, midquel, reboot. What the heck? Exactly. Learning these could help you get more into the niche. Let's take a break from the nerd stuff and let's think about what is a sequel. In very short terms, a sequel is a work that expands the narrative of a previous production. Colloquially, this term has two main meanings. It could be the direct continuation of a story, or an umbrella term for all of those other unholy terms I've just shown you. These are specific types of sequels, and they basically depend on storyline chronology and release year. Bear that in mind, and it's gonna be really easy to follow. Let's start by focusing on the first definition of a sequel. The basic sequel is basically a direct continuation of the storyline. It generally contains the same core characters. It's really basic, and that's probably what comes to your mind when we talk about continuation. It's not nerd, it's very safe, and Toy Story 1 and 2 are really good examples. You've got Woody and Buzz going on yet another adventure and everybody's happy. This one seems like a mouthful, but is not that hard. It's basically the opposite. A prequel, or pre-sequel, is a movie that tells the story chronologically before the original movie, although it was released later. For some cases, you could call prequels very big flashbacks, and that's the case of Star Wars. After concluding the classic story with Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi, the viewer may be confused on how the heck Luke Skywalker is Darth Vader's son. So that's why they conceived, more than a decade later, Episode 1, A Phantom Menace. You see, if you consider prequels flashbacks, you can call the Star Wars prequels a really big flashback. Consisting of 3 movies, episodes 1, 2, and 3 are called the prequel trilogy by fans. They follow up the original story. For explaining midquels, let's keep Star Wars around for a sec. A midquel is basically a movie that takes place chronologically between 2 other established movies of a franchise. It is the case of Rogue One, a movie that takes place between Star Wars episodes 3 and 4. They usually serve to expand and make a plot point more robust. In this example, Rogue One tells the story of the crew responsible for extracting the information that led to the iconic destruction of the Death Star in the first Star Wars movie. Now for the next. A prequel, or a parallel sequel, is a sequel that happens chronologically at the exact same time of the original movie. It usually also tells the same overarching story, but from a different perspective. The best example I can think of is Lion King 1.5. Basically, it tells the same old story of Simba, but from the much more fun, I dare to say, Timon and Pumbaa's perspective. Now, let's talk about things that are not necessarily sequels, but come from similar nerd terminology. A reboot is a fresh new version of a movie that restarts the storyline without any connection to the original. This generally happens with adaptations, since they represent the many different interpretations from a source material, usually books or comic books. The examples are many: the different versions of Spider-Man, the dozens of Batmans and Superman movies, the live-action avatars, and, in this example, the 2 Dune movies. I just chose this one because I really like David Lynch, and Kyle looks kinda handsome in that movie. A soft reboot is like a reboot, but as its name implies, it does not fully erase the storyline and universe of the original. It just changes narrative focus and selects successful elements of the previous while dumping things that didn't work. Actually, This is very popular when franchises receive a bad reception and need to restart in some way. The first Suicide Squad from 2016 wasn't really that great. So they went there, retained the good things, forgot about the other stuff, and made it a second one, The Suicide Squad, in 2021. Oh gosh, I really like that movie. A spin-off is a standalone film, which means you do not need to watch other movies to keep up with the narrative, because it doesn't share immediate storyline elements. However, it is usually an expansion to that experience, because it introduces another canonical focal point in the same universe. It is good for fans, good for the casual moviegoer, and everybody's happy. Alien Romulus is a very recent example, and I would dare to say it even surpasses the original movie. Talking about Alien, we have crossovers. Crossovers are films that withdraw characters and elements from two different franchises and unite them in a single narrative. These are usually very commercial movies, and they rely on nostalgia and the union of different fandoms to be celebrated. They are usually not very rich from a technical point of view, though. Alien vs. Predator is a movie that puts into conflict two different extraterrestrial species of murderers. So, yeah, you can imagine. Phew, that's a lot of stuff. But let's recap the things that we just learned. There are various sequel types, but if you always think about chronological order and the release date, you will always be prepared to sort all those definitions out. We also understood that they may be really useful for you to participate in different communities and their discussions about cinema and media in general. Finally, the final conclusion we can think of is... Dear God, how nerdy can movie nerds get, huh? Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. There are more terms, but I think those are the main ones related to sequels. Hope you learned something new today.